Good morning. My name is Tracy, and it is my privilege to be here to share with you just one of Jesus' stories of faithfulness in my life. So thank you for being here today. You can't really understand motherhood until you become a mother, right? I remember in high school and college being so judgmental, thinking, my kid's never going to do that. Never going to do that. I remember being judgmental, seeing moms at Target in the middle of the afternoon, and their kids are still in their pajamas. Now I just smile at her knowing she just didn't have it in her to fight that battle that day, and that's completely okay. Now, moms, if we're in Target in the middle of the afternoon in our pajamas, then our crazy is showing a little bit, and we might want to tuck that back in. Being a mom has taught me a new level of crazy that I never knew I was capable of, like this one. Never, ever being able to use the bathroom alone, ever. It just doesn't happen anymore. Or praying for patience just to get out the door. The first time you say it nice, like Mary Poppins, and then 15 minutes later you're like, get in the car. So it's just crazy. My husband, Mike, and I are blessed to have two mighty warriors. They are all boy. My oldest, Isaac, I caught him at 10 climbing up the outside of the chimney so he could parachute off the roof without a parachute. And my youngest, Jacob, was the 2017 National Bull Riding Champion. So clearly I have a dangerous group of boys in my house. Our Christmas letter one year was a list of things that they had broken in my home. They once destroyed an air conditioner. The story is, and again I say story, the story is that there was a bee, it needed to die, and they had golf clubs. Yeah. My oldest, Isaac, is super intelligent. He never had to study for a test in his life. He's also extremely generous. If you came to our home, you were leaving with something. And he is a passionate protector. I had a season of health issues, and anytime I was home from the hospital, he was committed to sleeping next to me on the floor in his little sleeping bag. But he doesn't always connect cause and effect, and he's not naturally inclined to respect authority, to the degree that when he was 5, we began seeking professional help. One of the therapists that we first saw was a woman who had a playroom, and she would sit behind a glass window and watch you interact with your child and then come share her thoughts. And after the first session where Isaac picked up a lightsaber and attacked me, she came out and said, "Wow, your life is hard." It was so hard because you could tell that he mostly wanted to do what was right. It was just really hard for him to do it. My husband and I lovingly dubbed him, secretly, we wouldn't say this to him, the insecure porcupine. He desperately needed your love and acceptance, but you had to know that you were going to get hurt in giving it. He once had an episode that involved throwing furniture and coming at me with a knife. This was when he was 5 or 6. I'm not a perfect parent. Your mom. You're not a perfect parent. We get angry. We get impatient. But I read more books, we took more classes, we took him to more specialists, I read my Bible. I walked with Jesus every day. But it just wasn't easy. And I felt like a failure, and I was completely exhausted by the daily battle. Some days I was so afraid that I felt like I couldn't breathe. But God met me in His Word. Psalm 62 says that God is solid rock under my feet and provides breathing room for my soul. Unfortunately, church wasn't the most accepting place. I picked Isaac up once from a kids event, and the teacher pulled him out of the room by his arm, pointed at him and said, "Fix it," and walked away. He saw at least one new specialist each year, different doctors, therapists, blood work, brain scans. One doctor we saw said that living in Isaac's brain is like being in a rock concert 24/7 with strobe lights. We saw all these specialists in the hopes of finding something to help him succeed, to find an answer to the question of, why is this happening? Yet the same extreme anger, defiance, anxiety, or intense sadness remained. He was 10 when I found a noose hanging from his bunk bed. I was so stuck in fear. For some, fear can be a paralyzer. I am a doer. I am way more Martha than I am Mary. Two of my personality traits are energetic and mobilizer. I get crap done. So for me, fear was a frantic driver. I have got to find an answer. Somebody knows what's going on. Somebody has to be able to help. So it read more books, sought more guidance, saw more specialists. But the fear still remained. But God met me again in my fear by showing me that he was with me. I was listening to a podcast by Francis Chan, and he shared a song that his daughter had just written the night before called Even Here. I won't sing it. I'll leave that to Jamie. It would be scary if I sang it. So the first verse says, I know your pain, and I hear your cry, and I have been there too. And I promise not to leave you. Soon you will see what I can see. Child, keep your eyes on me. You're right where you should be. Don't fear anything, because I am here, and I can bring you joy. Even here, I can bring you joy. We continued to love him and train him as best as we could, but his behavior wasn't getting any better, and he was getting bigger and stronger. Feeling like we had no other hope, when he was 14, we chose to sell our home in order to pay to send him to a therapeutic boys' home. We were not allowed to speak to him for 6 months. This completely broke me. I was so stuck in hopelessness. This is when I became familiar with the term passively suicidal. I wasn't going to take any action, but if I died, I was completely cool with it. I felt like I had failed him, so why even keep trying? But God met me. He showed me that even at this level of brokenness, I could find hope. Romans 8 says, this resurrection life you've received from God is not a timid, grave-tending life. It is adventurously expectant, greeting God with a childlike, what's next, Papa? What does it look like when you tend a grave? Can you look up while you're tending a grave? No, you're looking down. You're down in the dirt. And I was completely stuck in the muck and the goo of that grave. And you can't see the big picture when you're focused on the small one. The therapeutic home that we sent him to had 7 different levels that each boy had to complete in order to graduate. Most boys took between 12 and 18 months. At 18 months, they invented a half level for Isaac because he still wasn't connecting the dots. We had run out of funds, and he was coming home. But in some ways, it was wonderful to have him home. I got to see him every day. I got to talk to him every day. I got to hug him every day. But it didn't take long for the old behaviors to return. He'd been stealing cash from us for years, but now he began taking our credit cards and our vehicles. We had to start locking all of our things in the safe. Then he figured out how to break into that too. The first time I called the police was when he tried choking me out because we got in an argument about how I was preparing dinner. He would run away often and come back at night to steal from us and the neighbors. Knowing that we had to stop this behavior, the next time he snuck home, my husband Mike pulled him to the ground and laid on him to hold him down. Isaac, realizing that the police are on the way, takes a rock the size of a softball and hits his dad repeatedly in the head. From that point on, he was in and out of many detention and mental health centers. As best we could remember, it's about 6. It was all kind of a blur. Like I said, he's really smart, and he would figure out the best way to get kicked out. When we picked him up from one facility, and I couldn't even tell you which one it was, one of the ones in Tulsa, and we didn't have a place to go next, I asked the facility director, do you have any suggestions? Where should we go? And she looked me right in the face and said, this is what the penal system is for. What does a parent do when there's no place for him, when there's no one that can offer you help? Yes, he assaulted you, but he still has to come home. But God met me by assuring me that he was walking this road with me. Isaiah 40 through 43 are home to me. I listen to the Message version. I read and listen to it. I swear to you, if I heard the guy who reads that on the street, I would recognize his voice. Listen to it so much. Isaiah 40 says, "Comfort, O comfort my people. Speak softly and tenderly to Tracy. Why would you ever complain, baby? Why would you ever complain, Tracy, or whine, baby girl, saying, God has lost track of me. He doesn't care what happens to me. Don't you know anything? Haven't you been listening? God doesn't come and go. God lasts. And he's the creator of all you can see or imagine. He doesn't get tired out. He doesn't pause to catch his breath. And he knows everything inside and out, even my son's brain." Or Isaiah 41. He says, "I picked you. I haven't dropped you. Don't panic, Tracy. I am with you. There's no need to fear, for I am your God. I will give you strength. I will help you. I will hold you steady. I will keep a firm grip on you. I, your God, have a firm grip on you, and I'm not letting go. I'm telling you, don't panic, Tracy. I'm right here to help you." The next time he came home, it didn't last for very long because he was 18 now, and he would rather be homeless than abide by our rules, which at this point are don't steal and no violence. I would see him around town. We live in Guthrie. We live in a small town, so I would see him around town, and I'd ask him, "Do you want to come home?" And he would say no. So I'd go buy him some food and tell him that I love him, tell him that he has what it takes, and drive away praying that he makes better choices and that his heart would be soft towards God. I wonder how many times I prayed that prayer. How many times that I asked Jesus to change his heart, to soften his heart towards him. But it doesn't matter, because impossibilities are God's specialty, and his timing is always perfect. Shortly before he was arrested again, this time as an adult, we found out that his teenage girlfriend was pregnant. But God met me by speaking again to my fear. Zephaniah 3:17 says, "Don't be afraid, dear Tracy. Don't despair. Your God is present among you, a strong warrior there to save you. He will calm you with his love and delight you with his songs." There have been some positive moments recently. He was at an AA meeting, and he said that he was telling me the story. At an AA meeting, they posed the question, if you were stuck on the top of Mount Everest, do you have someone who would come rescue you? And he said, without hesitation, my mom would be strapping on her hiking boots and march right up that hill. He also sent a text recently to my husband that I'd like to read to you. "Hey, Pops. I just wanted to say that you're my hero. You've been there for me through all of this, and you would do anything for me, and I haven't realized it. I remember the coffee shops and the donuts. I remember the flag football parties and hanging on your leg because I didn't want you to go to work. I remember swimming together at the little house. I remember everything, and somehow I pushed it out of my head. I want to come home. I have nothing. I have a son that doesn't know me. He's supposed to be my world, and I never cared. I want to be like you, and it seems like I'll never be like you. I always wanted to, but I never got there. This isn't the life that you raised me to live. And it hurts bad. Money and girls isn't everything. I want to be okay. I'm not okay. Anyways, I love you, Dad." I just wanted to tell you that. I wish I could tell you that he's doing well, that all of this is behind him. But he recently called me in December on my birthday to tell me that he'd been arrested again under new charges. But Jesus continues to meet me, even in those new bad moments where I think I couldn't possibly hear more bad news, and my stomach drops, but Jesus meets me. John 16 says, "I've told you all this so that in trusting me, you will be unshakable and assured, deeply at peace. In this godless world, you will continue to experience difficulties, but take heart, for I have conquered the world." Fear isn't irrational. Jesus just said this world is a scary place. It's not irrational to be afraid. But for those of us who know Jesus, living in fear is completely illogical. When I understand how much that he cares for me, just as Amy said, he's the lover of my soul. He's the collector of my tears. He smiled when he knit me together in my mother's womb. He goes before me and behind me. When I can understand my heart for him, I'm completely liberated from fear. Understanding his heart for me gives me a peace that I need to be more Mary and less Martha, to be able to sit at Jesus' feet with open hands and just say, I'm yours. I'm yours. Fear can still be my companion. Fear for me is the red flag. It's the engine light that signals that something's going on, and it's the driving force that pushes me to Jesus. I also have to choose not to be stuck in the why me, because I've been there a lot. Don't worry if you're stuck in a why me moment, you're in good company. Moses, Gideon, Jonah, Elijah. Yeah, we all ask, why me? But why me is a trap, and it's victim mentality. And maybe Jesus is trying to prove something to the enemy, and your response is the key. In John 14:9, Jesus is walking down the street, and he saw a man blind from birth. And his disciples asked, Rabbi, who sinned? This man or his parents causing him to be born blind? And Jesus said, you are asking the wrong question. You're looking for someone to blame. There is no such cause and effect here. Instead, look for what God can do. Look for what God can do. I can choose to be stuck in fear. I can choose to be stuck in asking why me. Or I can choose to believe that God not only loves me, but loves my son more than I ever could. More than I ever could. He is the God who formed Isaac. How Isaac's brain worked is not a surprise to him. Not a surprise to him. And Isaac's story isn't over yet. I love that face. I love that face. Jesus is the God who looks him full in the face and smiles. Jesus is the God of divine reversals. So my question to you is, what grave are you tending today? Where are you stuck in the small picture instead of the big picture? Where are you stuck in your fears or in your whys? And how can you change your perspective to ask Jesus instead of asking, what's next, Papa? Or what's next, Papa? To an expectant, greeting God with an expectant, what's next, Papa? Thank you.